there's an immense amount of irony laced into All Might's classic. While there isn't an ounce of deceit in his words, there are words that are coiled to the downfall of society in My Hero Academia. All Might's strength and desire to save was always pure, but that purity came at a cost to him and the world around him. Every time he uttered his iconic line, the weight on his shoulders grew a bit heavier. But intermixed with the irony is the pure adoration of All Might that inspires the next generation of heroes. When Horikoshi develops to move beyond that symbol of peace and into an era of collective heroes intermingling with regular people to create a better society. All Might's sole focus in life was on being the number one hero, the one to save everyone, but that desire would become the downfall of society. There's something to be said about just how overwhelmingly strong All Might is. He had a long time where he reigned as the person who could solve any and all problems. My Hero Academia Vigilantes takes this notion quite literally and positions All Might as basically a deus ex machina that needs to be delayed at all costs. The final arc is predicated on delaying his arrival, and once they can't stall him any longer, he arrives and solves the problem. This of course comes at a cost, with the recurring joke where he's so busy he can't even finish his dinner, which says a lot about him and his desire to save that he will drop anything and everything at a moment's notice if there is even a hint of trouble. And the average person knows this and takes advantage of that. Their comfort is predicated on the existence of All Might to keep the villains at bay. They'll always appear, but the people don't have to try and wonder why that happens because they just have to call her All Might and he'll solve all their problems. There's another interesting thing to note about All Might's existence in Vigilantes that further reinforces how much stronger he is than literally everyone else. The final arc in Vigilantes brings all the major pro-heroes into the picture to do their part to stop the heroes, but it isn't enough. They're able to do some good and help out to the best of their abilities, but they can't come close to the sheer power of All Might, who simply needs to arrive and within moments everything is solved. And the irony continues to settle because once again he is there and the world sees it and clamps their expectations down on him. Echoes of the same idea can be seen in the series proper during the war. Every pro-hero arrives on the scene and they're defeated by Shigaraki and company, only managing to keep society together by the razor-thin threads of hope left. Without the symbol of peace, the people are scared and the other pro-heroes are unable to fill that vacuum. No one can be the symbol of peace, and that's for the best. But to portray All Might's devoted heroism as somehow a net negative is missing half of the picture. The notion of I am here is earnestly trying to save everyone without any hidden motives or goals. It is pure heroism, and that's what inspires the next generation of heroes after All Might. There's a reason both Deku and Koichi's origin points are being inspired by All Might. They're the distillation of what All Might's legacy can and should be. And All Might is acutely aware of his position as the symbol of peace. In the back of his mind, he can see that his overwhelming presence is carrying too much of society on his shoulders, but he also understands that he needs to hold strong because of that. Ideally, he would have a smoother transition to the next generation of heroes, but the way the series unfolds, his legacy and the world around him interrogate a position in a much more interesting way. All Might vs. All For One is one of the best fights in any shonen series I've ever read. It's such an incredibly engaging fight, but it's also so necessary for All Might and his status as the symbol of peace. It's All Might coming face to face with his past, present, and future in his attempt to hold it strong one last time. He knows that the current society is built on his shoulders, and without him, it would fall into darkness. He knows that people rely on him for any and everything related to villains, and he knows he can't fall here. But he knows that his body is failing. The time for him to stop will come sooner rather than later. He knows the symbol of peace can't reign supreme for that much longer. But in spite of it all, he stands with his head held high and pushes onwards toward continue being a hero. The symbol of peace may fall, but All Might knows it's not the end. The Your Next scene is a profound indicator that All Might is acutely aware of how he's perceived. It brings a strong sadness for Deku, who knows that this is the end of the symbol of peace, but it's also All Might standing up and saying, I leave the future to you. He's addressing every single person watching him, not just Deku or the other heroes, but the world. He's given his life and then some to saving others, and he rests his hopes on those who will come after him. He trusts they will be able to bring the world into a brighter future. However, the vast majority of people don't understand the true meaning of All Might's message. They cheer for the symbol of peace because they're still reliant on him. They read All Might's words as something to strike fear into villains. They expect him to keep up the act even after seeing him barely clinging on to life. He must always be there because what would the world do without someone to pin all their worries onto? It's such a sad scene, but it is so incredibly damning of the world of My Hero Academia. These are people dependent on someone to shift their responsibilities onto. And it's here that the vacuum begins, and you can feel the black hole that erupts from All Might's retirement. He has set the bar so impossibly high that no one can hope to fill it. I never can try, but All Might's particular brand of heroism is not something that can be replicated alone, especially not by him. And it so quickly reflects back onto everyone else, because you can tell immediately they all want All Might too, when that was never going to happen. They don't know or care to understand the sacrifices All Might made to stay the symbol of peace for as long as he did. They don't know that his health is failing him, and each time he fights he loses a little more time. And All Might intentionally keeps it this way, which is a massive burden for him to bear. but also one that exacerbates the problem. The heroism in his heart prevents him from sitting idly by. He has to be there. The problem with Hero Society isn't All Might, it's the overdependence on him as the sole beacon of heroism at the expense of people who fall through the cracks. It's the fact that the average person wants every hero to be All Might when that is realistic and impossible. Hero Society falls because the people continue to expect All Might even when it is clear he can no longer be there in the same capacity as before. To take a brief aside, I want to talk about Dark Deku, or whatever they call the edgy version of him. This version of Deku is what the people expected of every other hero, someone who is always on the prowl defeating villains in the pursuit of this pure and constant heroism. And it nearly destroys Deku. He runs himself ragged trying to live up to what the people want. He tries to be like the false image that people have of All Might. And how do the people treat Deku? They push him away. He can't rest, there are problems to be solved. He's not seen as a hero or really even a person, just as a tool that is being beaten within an inch of breaking. But this isn't anything new, it's just how they saw All Might for his entire time as the symbol of peace. They never saw All Might as an actual person, just as the heroic personification that they had conjured in their minds. While he was pushed well beyond his limit, they cheered. All Might did what they wanted, so they cheered, but when they're confronted with the ugly truth of All Might through Dark Deku, they jeer at him. It takes an impassioned speech from Ochako where they even begin to view Deku as a human again. And it's ultimately this arc that is the purest distillation of the failures of Hero Society. The people never saw the heroes as humans, only as tools that solved their problems. It's eerily similar to the hidden inventory arc in Jujutsu Kaisen, but that's for a separate video if I ever make that one. But the people needed to see Dark Deku before society could change or grow. We see the effects of this mini arc in the final chapters of the manga, where the people that jeered at Deku helped rebuild society. They were confronted with the ugly truth that they were killing All Might and the heroes, and while it took some time, they began the path to growing as human beings and becoming the new type of hero that society needed. But before we get to the aftermath, this is still a video about All Might, and I'd be hard-pressed to not talk about his involvement in the final fight in the series. Iron Might is the perfect continuation and conclusion to All Might's arc through the entire series. If your next scene is the signal of the end of the symbol of peace, Iron Might's triumphant return is All Might saying he's still got one more in him. He's still here even if he's not the same as before. He will carry in the new era. Iron Might is the perfect encapsulation of the future of Hero Society. He's a quirkless man who borrows the powers of others to make his final stand against a villain. He's not a hero on his own, but through the collective powers of everyone in his life, and especially the students he's helped nurture and entrusted the future with. It's such a simple idea for keeping the strongest character active in the story, but it's such an incredible idea. All Might knows his time as a symbol of peace is over, he knows his body's failing him, but in spite of that, he is still a hero. He's still here. All Might is such an incredibly well-written character that has so much depth to him tucked away in every single aspect of the story and the world as a whole. He's such a smart human being that understands his place in the world and understands how to best utilize that to spur on the future. The symbol of peace was never meant to be an eternal idea, but by teaching at UA and mentoring characters like Deku and Bakugo, All Might places his hands on the shoulders of the future and says, "Let me help you get there." He trusts the future is in great hands with the next generation of heroes, but he clings to life to help get there. He may no longer be fully capable of carrying the burden of the symbol of peace, but he still wants to be a part of the future. I've seen a lot of discussion around the idea that All Might should have died, but I think by continuing to live, it paints a much better and healthier picture of heroism. Heroism should not be going out in a blaze of glory, it should be a baton pass from generation to generation. As many superhero movies have said, it's about getting back up even if it feels like it's too hard to do so. By continuing to live, All Might is able to see the future with his own eyes. He's not working for a sunrise he'll never see, but one he will help rise. And once that happens, he can sit down and look off and do it, then his work is finished and he can rest easily knowing the future is in good hands. The strongest doesn't always need to die for change to happen. Although you can make the argument that All Might still dies, however it's not the person that dies but the idea of the symbol of peace. All Might at that point is finally allowed to be just a hero, just a human being. The entire final war of My Hero Academia could have been avoided by seeing the human in each other and choosing to do good instead of offloading that burden onto larger-than-life figures. Each and every person is in charge of their lives, and we can be heroes in any number of ways. At the end of the day, there is no irony in I am here because it is the core of heroism. I am here is the idea of choosing to help, to do good even if it doesn't benefit you in any way beyond the feeling of doing something good for someone. We can all make the choice to wake up and decide that we are here for those who need a hero in their lives. Because ultimately, society is not built upon a symbol of peace, but on the collective goodness of the people that make up that society.